What's up, everybody? It's Friday. Yeah, February 3rd. All right. We had a big number today. Big number. Folks, before I get started, I'm going to ask you very sincerely, please watch the entire video. I think today's video is very important. It might be a little bit long because I included some clips in there from some commentators, people, YouTube channels, and you just gotta listen to this. You gotta listen to this stuff. Okay, I know it's sometimes a little bit tedious to sit through a whole entire video, but please try to watch this video in its entirety. Before I get started, and by the way, today's number was a freaking blowout number, 517,000 payrolls. And that happened even with, I've been talking about the seasonal workers that were let go. I mean, I saw that in the employment and withholding tax flows. But so that was a massive number, man. And unemployment went down. It's at the lowest level in 69 since 1969. Earnings went up. So as I've been saying, there's no indication, and not even an indication, there's no fundamental reality right now that will create a recession in 2023. That's been my position, but I continue to say that the debt ceiling by June, if that doesn't get resolved, then there's going to be trouble. But anyway, let me get into this. And before I start with these video clips, somebody posted up a comment, and I tried to find that comment again, and so I could reply to it, but then I wasn't able to locate it. But hopefully this person is listening, and if he or she is not listening, I want to state the comment, and I want to reply to it because it's really important. Because, the other day I said something I've been saying there's no debt. I mean, the national debt, what that is just, dollars that have been created, net amount of dollars that have been created over the whole history of the United States from 1787 until now, that haven't been taxed away. I mean, those are dollars that we own, we hold. It's part of our financial assets. And, it's not a debt. But somebody said, well, Mike, does that mean we don't have to pay back the Chinese for the dollars they lent us when they bought treasuries? And so, here's the way you have to think of this. The Chinese sold us stuff, okay? They sold us electronics, they sold us toys, they sold us textiles, they sold us whatever. The Chinese is a net exporter to the United States. They earned dollars as a consequence of that, commercial transaction, of a consequence of that trade. They earned dollars, okay, which we paid them, and they just hold the dollars in the form of a treasury, which is the same exact thing as if you took your money from your checking account in your bank and you put it in your savings account, okay? When it's time when those securities mature, the government redeems them. Basically, what happens in that process is that the Fed then debits the Treasury, the securities account. The Fed has two separate accounts. It has securities accounts where government securities are, that's the bookkeeping entry of government securities, and then it has the reserve accounts. That's like your cash account. So what happens is that those treasuries, all right, it's debited in the securities account and it's credited to the reserve account. there's no paying back. It's like when you switch your money from your savings account now back into your checking account. You just call your bank or you go online and you just transfer, and it's just like a keystroke. There's nothing to pay back. We paid for the goods that China sold us. They have dollars. They're just holding the dollars in the form of a government security because it pays some interest. And government securities are dollar equivalents. Same thing. The only difference is they have a term, meaning, they could be, 30 days, 60 days, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, and they have a coupon attached, which means an interest payment attached. So you have to stop thinking like there's something to pay back. They got paid when they sold us the shit. Okay? All right, now, here's something I want to show you. There's this guy, maybe some of you know this guy. He's got a big popular YouTube channel. His name is Meet Kevin. Okay, young dude. Makes lots of videos. He even ran for governor of California last year or a couple of years ago. He was on the ballot. When I first started watching this dude, I don't know, maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago, he was into real estate. Supposedly he owned a bunch of single family homes, and he was showing people or novices how to get into that business. And, buy houses and fix them up and then rent them out. It was pretty interesting, if you're into that stuff. But then I don't know what happened to that business for him, because it seems like if you're in a good business and you're really good at it, you tend to stay in that business. But then, he segued into stocks, and now he's a really, I don't know if he's a big stock guy, but he talks almost always about the stock market. And he's another one of these guys who's been brainwashed by this monetarism. And today, by the way, when that number, just as on a side note, and I don't even have to tell you, when that big payroll number came out, what do you think happened? All the monetarist zombies got triggered again. Oh my God, people are working. That must mean the Fed's going to keep on raising interest rates. And oh my God, that is so terrible. Not thinking hey, people are working, incomes are going up. Income is a fundamental element in the growth of the economy. Remember, I always say that the only way there could be a recession is when income is drained. There's only a few ways you could do that. The most important way is when the government takes it away in the form of taxes. But it could also flow out into the foreign sector. When we run big trade deficits, or when there's inflation that we are susceptible to, because let's say it's emanating from the foreign sector, let's say from an oil cartel or something like that, or when we impose sanctions on a major global producer of energy like Russia, but that's a whole separate thing. So I'm going to play this clip for you, and it's funny. You have to laugh at this stuff, folks. You have to laugh at this stuff, but at the same time, it's maddening, because this narrative, this belief system is so ingrained, and when you think about it, it's really, really so just irrational. Sit down for 2 minutes and think about it. So anyway, here he goes. He's gonna. He was sitting there, I guess, live, looking at his screen, and he's talking about the numbers that just came out.
Jobs data was a complete disaster. Here we go. Jobs data on deck, and it is unemployment rate 3.4. Oh my! What the hell? 517 change in non-farm payroll, 517,000. Average hourly earnings coming in at 0.3%. It's a match on the month over month, but year over year comes in at 4.4, slightly hot. How the hell did we add 517,000 jobs? The unemployment rate went down. It was supposed to tick up 0.1%. It went down to 3.4%. What the hell is happening? This is absolute insanity. 517,000 jobs. I'm not sure if this is like a massive seasonal adjustment or if I can't trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics at all.
So you see, he's like beside himself. He's like, oh my God, 517K, and the unemployment rate went down, and people are earning more money. This is a disaster. Okay, this is the whole monetarist psychosis. I told you, it's a mental illness. It's a mental illness. When they see the economy is doing well, they don't think like, oh, that's expansion of growth. That's more abundance. That's more wealth to go around. No, it's a disaster because interest rates are going up, which, by the way, they've been going up now for, a year. And what has happened? We're seeing massive interest income transfers to the economy, which, by the way, is a fundamental reason why the economy is not going into recession. I mean, they're just pumping in. I mean, it's checks going out, checks, okay, and I said, oh, maybe it's not going out to us personally, but it all goes in the swimming pool, it's filling up. Folks, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you have to look at this stuff, and you have to, I mean, it's comical, but at the same time, it's sad. It's very, very sad. I mean, this is not hard to understand. This is just not hard to understand. Now, I'm going to play another clip for you. Okay, with this guy. There's another one of these guys. He's got a popular YouTube channel. I don't know if you watch him or if you heard of him. His name is Patrick Bet David. The PBD podcast. I don't know what this guy actually does. The guy turns me off just the way he speaks. He's got a kind of a speech tonality that to me it sounds like a kind of a liquidy, I don't know. But he's interviewing some guy who's supposedly some young progressive guy. I don't know who this kid is. A guy named David Pac-Man. I guess he has a big YouTube channel or something like that. The two are totally diametrically opposed, okay? Like this David Pac-Man kid, he's a liberal progressive, and Patrick Bet David, because he apparently made a lot of money in his career. He says he made a couple of $100 million, and he's like really anti-government spending and stuff like that. So I'm going to play this for you because in the first little piece you'll see like he right away conflates the government finances with that of a corporation. So here we go.
But if you constantly come to me for more money, let me just put it to you this way.
Yeah.
What does it mean when a company or an individual is in debt $200,000?
When a company or an individual
let's just say I'm in the $200,000.
Okay.
And it was $100,000 5 years ago.
Okay.
It was $50,000 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was $10,000 15 years ago. I come to you for another $50,000. Right. Should you lend it to me?
Probably not, no.
What are we doing? What are we doing? We're lending our taxpayer.
It sounds like you're analogizing.
But we're lending our taxpayer money, and we keep getting into more and more and more and more.
So you see in that clip, he said, well, if you had a business and, there were $50,000 in debt, and then there were $100,000 in debt, and then there were $200,000 in debt, and we keep giving them our money, would you keep doing that? So right there, I mean, it's just obvious that the guy is clueless to the distinction between a sovereign currency issuing nation like the United States, okay, that issues its own money where all of its liabilities, if you want to call it that, all of its promises are denominated in its own currency. And the only real promise that it makes, and it says right on a dollar bill, is that it will accept this legal tender for all debt payments, public and private. And it's the public part that's important. It's basically the government is saying, if the money we give out there, that's what we accept. That's the only thing we accept for the payment of taxes, okay? You can't pay us in gold, you can't pay us in yen, you can't pay us in Bitcoin. We need that, okay? That's what imparts the value. So right away, he just conflates it with a business. But then he goes on to an even stupider thing where he says, imagine if, this was an individual. Here, listen.
That if the government was an individual or a corporation, I don't understand why investors keep giving this government more money when they have no cash.
The critical answer is the government and countries are not like households or companies. That's the difference. It's not
That's not true.
analogous.
That's not
it's
true.
Not analogous.
That's not true, though.
No,
So meaning it's okay for us to keep going into debt. That's okay.
That's not what I'm saying.
So what
But
is
I think
different
it's
about
important.
So you see, he says there, imagine if this was a person, if this was an individual. It's not a person. It's not an individual. Now, this guy, David Pacman, he attempts to explain it. He says, well, it doesn't work that way, but he really doesn't have the deep understanding to counter this guy, fucking Patrick Bet-David, who's a fucking moron. I'm sorry. The guy is an idiot. Okay? He should stick to interviewing mafia dons and these other, like low-level dregs of society. Maybe he was good with that. Maybe he's good with that. I don't know. It's entertaining. But this stuff, this is the mainstream, pervasive, understanding, if you want to call it that. This is not understanding. This is complete and utter ignorance, and there could be innocent ignorance, all right? There could be innocent ignorance because, maybe the facts are not available. Or maybe they're hard to locate or uncover. Maybe it takes a certain kind of analysis or mind or insight into really seeing it. Maybe you have to have a certain level of genius. But what kind of an interview is this when you say, let's imagine that this was a person? It's not a person. It's a government which is the sovereign monopoly issuer of its own money. And to conflate these things, first of all, it's just an example of sheer, utter incompetence and stupidity. It's also a reflection of complete just ideology and dogma and mythology in his brain, but it's not just unique to him. That's the problem. It's out there. It's broadly out there. So, that's what we're dealing with here, folks. That's what we're dealing with. But today I thought it was, the other thing I forgot to mention, if you go back to the Meet Kevin clip, this is funny because a good friend of mine, we've had a joke for a long time, a kind of a running joke between us. And every time when these people who have a completely wrong understanding about the monetary system and when their predictions and their forecasts are kind of upended and end up the usual reply is always, oh, do you believe those numbers? They must be making them up. So that's what they fall back on. If it doesn't support their view, if the market is going in a different direction than they think it should based on their single variable analytical framework, which they don't even understand, then immediately they go to, well, do you believe those numbers? Come on, they must be made up. That's what they do all the time. That's the only thing they can do. It's like a brain short circuit. And I find the most fascinating thing to be, they just never, ever, ever try to rethink or question, their theses. They just stick with it. And again, it's like, I don't know, are people that dumb? Are they really that dumb? And I'm not saying I'm any kind of a genius, but I mean, I've just always been like, if something's not working out, I try to figure out where my thinking is going wrong, or whatever it is that I'm doing. If it's not producing the result that I want, I did a pizza video the other day, just to use a stupid example. It took me a long time, and by the way, somebody said if I ever went to Italy, I'd be killed for that pizza. It's hard to make a how-to video and film myself at the same time and make everything come out perfect. But believe me, folks, if you tasted my pizza, you would love it, and I think I would be fine in Italy. All right. But it took me a long time. It wasn't working out. I didn't just say, okay, this is how it is. We're gonna eat this pizza. No, I kept working at it and trying to figure out what I did wrong. And then I came up with the proper recipe and the proper way to do it. That's just me. Sorry, but I try to do that with everything that I do. But these people you almost have to admire them in their ability to stick with, these flawed understandings and beliefs that are it's right there in front of their faces, and they just will not accept the reality of it. And it always comes down to either, hey, the data is wrong, or don't worry, one day it's going to happen. One day, I'll tell you this, that the earth is going to stop revolving around the sun. Okay, one day that's going to happen. I mean, the sun will expand and it'll become a supernova, and everything, the solar system will be gone. All right, I can tell you that with absolute 1,000% certainty. But does that do anything for me? Does that do anything for you? No. And that is like a gazillion times more true than these people saying, one day their quacky, wrong understanding is going to happen because of the way, they think it's going to go. It's not. It's just not. All right, anyway, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a nice weekend. Bye.